Hi and welcome back to The Explainer. It's Tuesday 21st of July 2026 and two rather important events occurred just last Friday in the world of AI and in China specifically. Number one, President Xi launched the World AI Conference in Shanghai, and he was in attendance at that conference for the first time. And secondly, a company called Moonshot AI, one of the Chinese labs, backed by Alibaba and Tencent, so fairly heavyweight backing, launched their latest AI model called Kimi K3, and that sent shockwaves across the AI community over this weekend. The conference, first of all, President Xi, for the first time, announced what he's called the World AI Cooperation Organization, which is a 29-country organization, essentially the Global South, as it's now called, which would be an organization which would set global standards, governance and regulation of AI, clearly led by China. And that stands in contrast to the US grouping, or US-led grouping, of 35 countries called the World AI Opportunity Statement. And the only overlap between the two organizations is Kazakhstan, so two quite distinct West versus Global South organizations in terms of AI governance and regulation. And the Chinese-led grouping will be dominated by open source models, whereas the US AI labs so far have been all around closed source, proprietary models. And according to President Xi, open source will be representative of a global public good disseminated by China for the world in terms of AI provision. So really standing in stark contrast between the US closed source model, Chinese open source model, and crucially governance and global standards and regulation of AI accordingly. And probably not coincidentally, on the same Friday, the company Moonshot AI released their latest model. And the Kimi K3 model, which you can download, although currently there are capacity constraints, there's too much demand for it, is, as it seems to be, as good as, if not better than, the best US AI models so far. So if you think Anthropic Claude or OpenAI ChatGPT, etc., the performance of K3 would appear to be potentially better than those models. This is the first time that a Chinese large language model has potentially superseded those of the US, or at least equaled it. So quite a moment. The model itself is also cheaper, and as I said, open source. So on the 27th of July, the entire model will be released to developers across the world for their use. And its capability would appear to be as good as, let's say, Anthropic's Claude Fable 5 model, or the Mythos model. And the Mythos model was blocked by the US government due to the cybersecurity risk it posed in terms of potential hackings and the tools it gave to hackers. And now this open source model from China offers the same capabilities. So that introduces a new risk, I would say, to the global system. I think the other thing to mention would be this new AI model out of China was trained almost predominantly in Huawei chips, as opposed to NVIDIA chips, perhaps some older NVIDIA chips, in the wake of the ban of NVIDIA chips being supplied to China. So the Chinese have caught up with the US despite not using NVIDIA chips. And we saw, in terms of this provision of an open source Chinese trained model, a number of competitors down on the day on Friday. There are two main AI competitors in Hong Kong. They were down about 20% on Friday. And we saw SpaceX, which of course owns xAI, another competing AI model, down around 10% on Friday. And it's worth remembering that in SpaceX, despite its name, around 80% of its value, broadly speaking, is down to the xAI business, which is the AI model. And I think probably also worth mentioning that Anthropic and OpenAI are planning their IPOs at around $1 trillion valuation. And the current valuation of Moonshot AI in China is around $30 billion. So we'll see how that disparity shapes up in the coming weeks and months. And there is talk of a potentially substantial switch from the very popular Claude and GPT to the K3 model, because it is cheaper and it is, as I say, open source. And we'll have to see how that goes in terms of the provision of frontier models in AI. And in any event, the singularity continues, accelerating release of models both in the US and China. We're seeing the frontier of these models coming together and expanding extraordinarily quickly. The Chinese Moonshot AI company mentioned that the K3 current model and forthcoming models have been partly designed by the previous model in terms of chip design and improvement of their algorithms. So recursive self-improvement, the machines training themselves, is again pretty much happening right now. And at that point, the acceleration is rather profound. So the AI march continues. China's caught up. I think we can probably look forward to cheaper AI access, and that will have implications for many of the AI players in terms of stock market performance, I suspect, albeit the market is still growing extraordinarily quickly. And cheapness also makes it grow even faster. So we'll see what that revenue trade-off turns out to be. But most importantly, China's caught up and the singularity continues. I hope that's helpful. Catch you soon.